Begin by taping around the entire watercolor paper. This will ensure that the paper will stay flat as the watercolor dries. Next, take your practice print and cut around it. Place your print on your watercolor paper and trace around the image at least 2 times. You will be painting your pattern around your printed image, so choose the placement carefully. When you trace around the image with a 4H pencil. When watercolor is applied over a mark made by a 4H pencil, the mark disappears and erasing is not needed. After tracing, prepare your colors that you would like to use for your pattern. The colors you choose should follow a complementary, analogous, cool, warm, or monochromatic color scheme. To prepare colors for watercolor, dip your brush into water and loosen the pigment by swirling the brush around in each color pan you wish to use. You can mix colors by pulling the colors up from the pigment pan and place it on the lid of your watercolor container. The lid is to be used as a palette for mixing pigments. I am choosing an analogous color scheme, so I am mixing reds and purples together. If you want to create a light value color, all you have to do is lift pigment from the pan onto the palette and add water to your pigment to lighten the value. Whenever you begin painting your pattern, it is best to have your pattern be simple shapes and lines. Do not paint anything too complicated or realistic, as we want our facial feature prints to be the main focus of our artwork. You can either sketch out your pattern with the 4H pencil or freehand your pattern with the watercolor brush like I am doing. If you want to make thin lines in your pattern, you will want the tip of the brush to come to a fine point. To do this, spin the brush as you lift it away from the pigment on your palette lid. This will cause the bristles to twist to a fine point and you're able to create thinner lines in your pattern. When creating your pattern, make sure that you are referencing the pattern illustration images that you found the other day to help inspire and decide what are the best choices to make a beautiful, interesting, flowing pattern around your printed images. To create a flow, draw the elements within your pattern on angles. If you are choosing to show repetition, you will want to repeat identical elements like lines and shapes and even spacing around your composition. If you are choosing to show unity and harmony, you can repeat but gradually change your elements. For example, I am showing unity and harmony, so I am changing the size of the leaves, the angle I am drawing the leaves, and having the spacing between each leaf section be different. When it comes to painting with watercolor, you want to be quick if you are painting large areas so the watercolor has an even appearance. Whenever you are painting a singular shape, just make sure the watercolor stays wet in that section by adding moisture or even more watercolor pigment in the little areas you're not working in, so the water application has an even appearance when you're done. Remember to constantly find inspiration from your reference patterns. Keep the elements you're painting simple, flat shapes and lines. We are not painting objects to look 3D, so everything you paint should be flat shapes. You can get creative and have colors overlap. To do this step, you will need to ensure the previous watercolor you've painted is fully dry. To quicken the drawing process, you can use a heat gun to help evaporate the water from your watercolor. Once the pigment is dry, you can add in additional lines, dots, or shapes over a previously painted section. If you don't wait for the watercolor that you've previously painted to be dry, the second layer of color that you're going to add on is going to blend into that first watercolor and can tend to look like a hot mess. So you just want to make sure that you're taking the time to dry the watercolor before you add any additional details in. When you're done painting, you want to clean off your brushes and the lid of your watercolor. To clean off the lid, just get a wet paper towel and wipe off all the extra pigment. Clean off the brushes and lay them flat to dry, and you'll be left with a beautiful watercolor pattern. One more watercolor technique you may want to try is blending more than one pigment together to create beautiful color transitions within your pattern. To do this, you will place a base color down first. While that color is still wet, apply a different color onto your brush and apply the new color into the area you just painted, but make sure you're applying that new color while that first color is still wet. You want to apply this additional color into a wet color so the colors will blend together. This is a great technique to do if you want to do a simple repetitive pattern that is consistent in size and length, but has its color changing. As you paint today, remember the following things. Keep your pattern simple. Your pattern should consist of lines and flat shapes. 2. Reference the patterns you found the other day to inspire your design choices. 3. Make sure your pattern is drawn to show either repetition by having the lines and shapes be identical throughout or unity and harmony by having the lines and shapes repeat but gradually change. That's it. Have fun painting.